Hello and welcome to episode 32 of Listen and Be Heard. My name is Martha Senator. My co-host and producer is Tony Robles. Today in our first hour, I will speak with Rachel Barton, editor of Willawaw Journal, about the new fall issue now available for the price of your time and attention at willawawjournal.com. We will also hear contributing poets Cecil Morris, Reid and Connie Soper. Afterwards, a spoken word recording from Roots Manuva. Tony Robles speaks with children's author Lauren Beckwith about her new book, A Business of Ferrets, Collective Nouns of the Animal Kingdom. In our second hour, we feature an interview and some poetry from an open mic event, Versers of Color, in Hendersonville, North Carolina. Guest contributor Nilsa Rivera interviews our own Tony Robles about his new book of poems, Thrift Store Metamorphosis, and some spoken word brought to us by DJ Jeannie Hopper. Last week, I interviewed Sharon Scott about her timely new book, Low Power FM for Dummies. It was announced on October 16th that the FCC has pushed back the window to apply for an FCC license. It was November 1st. Now it's December 6th through 13th. So, December 13th is my birthday. Maybe that means Listen and Be Heard will get its license as a birthday present to me. No way to know that, but it does mean that if you were thinking that you would like for your nonprofit or your tribal organization that you are a part of to apply for a broadcast license so that you all can use it as a resource for your community, you now have 6 more weeks than we all thought that we had yesterday. So don't sit on the fence. You can listen to last week's show at listenandbeheard.net to the interview of Sharon in the second hour. Thanks to WXOX for airing the episode of Listen and Be Heard in Louisville, Kentucky. Up first, Rachel Barton.
Living it is learning from someone who can actually show you. It's cleaning your teacher's house or helping her to find one. It's never ever saying J-O-B. Living it is a one-way ticket and no solid plans. It's smoking a J in a smoke cafe in Amsterdam. It's saying the day is pretty in a strange new city. Living it is giving it. Giving it is having it. Having it is taking it. Taking it is moving it, shaking it, creating it, loving it. Living it is having nothing to lose and everything to gain. It's putting all of your charms and attributes, every single one of them, to good use. It's knowing the kindness of strangers and love for sale. Living it is knowing where to buy rice and beans in bulk. It's knowing herbs are cheaper than doctors. It's keeping it together when you're falling apart. It's writing poetry to ease a broken heart. Living it is knowing the stage, looking into bright lights, late nights, barroom fights, fantastic sights, inspiration.
These are my notes from the editor for issue 17 of Willawaw Journal. First, we start with a quote from David Lynch. Ideas are like fish. If you want to catch little fish, you can stay in the shallow water. But if you want to catch the big fish, you've got to go deeper. I have been mulling over the quote from David Lynch's book on meditation and creativity for a few weeks now. Part of the thrill for me of the turn to autumn, blue skies breezing through to cooler evenings, is the pull to go in. We are turning towards the dark even as we pick the last of the blueberries, peel the apples, or put up the pears. A last ramp-up of activity, the harvest, before the quiet of winter. We stock the larder, to prepare ourselves for the turn. Perhaps this collection of poetry will serve in a similar manner. It too represents a harvest, a kind of putting up for those pieces that call you back for another read. Within this issue, where Sam Siegel crowns each series of poems with his whimsical, magical landscapes, inspired by his sojourns into the natural world of Vancouver, BC, you will also find Ariane True's Seattle Sonatas struck a chord with several contributors. The many ways to think of home, as well as the multiplicity of circumstances that can make it irretrievable. Maybe Thomas Wolfe was right when he said you can't go home again. Or is home something you carry with you, no matter the changes in geography, a constant thing like a resonance in your core that can't be removed? Is it, as Ariane suggests, a matter of blood, that as a living organism within the organism of community, we are part of the lifeblood of any place we inhabit? For Ry Cooter, third base Dodger Stadium, home is just a place you don't know, up a road you can't go. Colonialism, gentrification, or so-called progress have repeatedly and radically altered the landscapes many have called home. Enjoy the thoughtful explorations on these pages and see which voices most strike a chord within you. As you dive into this issue, I hope you too can go deeper and catch the big one, that big idea that sets your creative world on fire.
My name is Connie Soper. I'm going to read two poems. The first one is called King Tide. Despite the warnings, or because of them, we've come to witness the wilding surf. Spumed crowns exaggerate their gaudy froth on what's left of the beach. Stranded bullcamp bejewels the shore. We know the cautions, alert to sneaker waves that want to suck us into the hypothermic void, mudslides, slick rocks. Logs already fallen, already dead, would roll and crush our bones easily as a bird's ribcage. We sidle up to danger's edge, its metallic salt taste on our tongues. Other voyeurs unfold their chairs on the dune to face the great arena, as if watching a coronation parade float by. Sky lowers its bunted clouding. Waves buck out of their chutes, bellicose and frenzied. We don't know whether to fear or hallelujah praise them, and we just can't stop watching.
Greetings, my name is Martha Senator. This is Listen and Be Heard, and my guest today is Rachel Barton, editor of the Willawaw Journal. Rachel is a poet, teacher, writing coach, and editor. For her creative work, she draws from the woods of Indiana, the mountains of West Virginia, and the grandest landscapes of Alaska. Her current life, anchored in the Pacific Northwest's Willamette Valley, also feeds her muse. She serves as associate editor for Cloudbank Books and was a longtime member of the Calyx Editorial Collective. Her book, This Is the Lightness, was published by The Poetry Box in 2022. To learn more about her and her work, go to rachelbartonwriter.com. Welcome to Listen and Be Heard, Rachel.
Thank you, Martha. Good to meet you. Put a face to your name.
Yes, it's nice to meet you as well. And I invited you here to talk about Willawaw Journal. A couple weeks ago, I had Susan Lewis on, the editor of Posit Journal. And it's interesting to me to be discovering the different digital journals that are available exclusively online. She's also a writer, and I wanted to find out from you, it seems to be a thing that certain writers also enjoy and get very involved in publishing other writers, and I would put you in that category. You've been doing Willawaw Journal for about 5 years now, am I correct?
I'm into the 6th year. Mm-hmm.
The 6th year. Twice a year you come out, right?
Yes.
So how have you kept that going for the last 6 years?
When I started, I was coming out of a time of teaching in small groups at the community college and then in my home when the community college went into a business model and it became too expensive for my students. They shortened the class and shortened my pay, and kept the price the same, so that wasn't so good. So I had classes in my home, but then that became a little too closed, and I decided I could practice sharing poetry and inspiring people with poet laureate prompts through Willawaw, through a journal of my own.
Now, that's a very unique approach. Could you just, before we go on, just explain what you mean by that?
The idea is to present a poem that from someone who has been regarded of high enough quality by a large group of people to become poet laureate. So there must be some value in their poem, especially when I'm using the current poet laureates, that people could see and relate to and use as a model. When I started back into my writing life in 2009 or 10, was with the Oregon Writing Project at Willamette University. And that brings the idea of teachers using writing with their students, creating a community of writers.
Interesting. So you came at it from the angle of being a teacher, as you were saying.
Yeah.
And this is like an effective tool then that teachers use to help writers, just give them something that they can go on.
Yeah, a jumping off point.
My name is Erica Reid, and this is Links. Years, this is what it has come to. I mailed a letter, and the answer was bored silence. My father, etc., would rather not read, and I honested myself out of his family photo. My grandfather died, and nobody told me. I discover so much by accident. My grandfather died, and nobody told me. What is a grandfather anyway? Only a father's father, right? How many do I need? How many can I bore to death? Bye, Walter. I didn't get to tell you what you never asked, and your great-grandkids would not have played football. How many do I need? This suitcase is small, so I choose my best books and the clock on the wall. I'm not running. No one's looking for me. I am preparing for fire. If you don't start one, I will. Might as well do something worth being blamed for. I sold my father's watch. He never owned a watch. If you don't start a daisy chain, I will. Don't try to keep me from ruthlessly flowering. This isn't his field. He never owned a field. You will not find your copper coins here, grandfather. You did not drop your silver watch here, father. The only loose change in this field is me, face like a dime.
You're a seasoned teacher from community college, and you took the approach with Willawaw Journal. You used a teacher's tool by coming up with this idea of the writer's prompts from poet laureates. And so Willawaw Journal, if I'm understanding correctly, kind of grew out of your kitchen classroom almost. Would that be an accurate description? And so what has the journey been since you decided to do this online? Then are the writers former students of yours, or it's just like a different approach you're now taking?
Well, it's a different approach, and sometimes a former student will submit, but it reaches a lot more people than my kitchen classroom, as you put it.
Okay.
And so I have writers from all over. In fact, last night I gave myself the task of looking at the latest issue. I do this periodically to do a check on myself and see, are we achieving the diversity that I hoped for? I found that in this latest issue, it came out of 14 states and 3 countries. So that's a good statistic. And that 16 of the writers who contributed were male and 18 were female. So that's a good balance too. I also found that with the poem prompt from Ariane True, a Seattle Sonata, that 10 people had written in direct response to that. So the prompt is having its effect. There were 13 poets from Oregon, but all over Oregon. Now a handful from Portland, but Eastern Oregon, Southern Oregon, the Valley. So it's reaching people. I feel confident.
This is the harvest moon calls us again. Past halfway from equator to northern pole, Harvest moon drops so low it bounces across the tops of the Douglas firs as it tries to lead the crows in a song about the passing season. The crows won't sing, and we stay silent too. This season another surgery we did not want. In the morning, Anastasia occluding the sun, we send our tentative fingers out for bandage, for incision ridge and furrow, for angry yellow-red of tomatoes or betadine, for discoloration of dismantling. We know something has been removed. We feel the absence. Gallbladder, appendix, kidney, belief in the arc of good humor. We want it back. The summer corn, the indolence of sun-soaked youth, the wild green sprouting, vigor of every appendage and organ intact and ready. Before we can voice our plaintive suits or sound our laments, impatient crows turn their backs on our loss, dip their jet heads, and mount their wings. They leave our ruined carcasses behind.
Do you think it's still an educational tool, or is this more, is this something different now?
I think it is still an educational tool, but this is pretty nebulous, so excuse me, Martha.
That's quite all right.
It has a degree of quality, partly inspired by the prompts, but inspired by people who continue to submit. So there is an ongoing community of people who continue to submit. And there's a good mix of people who've never submitted a poem in their life or who are very well established and just take a dodge and say, okay, I'm going to try this.
Okay.
So I get some really amazing writers too.
And that's motivation for you, I think, to keep going when you see these different issues and what you've pulled together.
Yeah, it kind of takes on a life of its own.
And I imagine that there's a community created by you just bringing all of these voices together into a publication.
I think so. And the writers seem very pleased. I have a Facebook page for the magazine. So right after it comes out for the next week and a half or 2 weeks, I publish one poem each day from the magazine so that they can share that. I mean, they can do it anyway, but some of them don't have that facility. So it gets out to a few people who might not have read it otherwise.
Okay.
A few more people. As a writer myself, I know the challenges of getting published and how mercurial it is, how subjective it can be. So this is one place where, or it is an additional place where poets can hope to be published.
What benefits have you found that this space, publishing space, has provided? Have you found that you started almost 6 years ago, and so the first issue, no one had heard of Willawaw Journal except the people you were telling about and hopefully getting the word out. How has that grown since then as like a reputable spot to be published?
Well, I think one of the, this is not a direct answer to your question, but one of the draws is that there's only a 1 month window in the spring and in the fall when I'm open for submissions. And this is so that I can manage an electronic submission manager and afford it, because Willawaw is not a money-making proposition. So people are now accustomed to that calendar of knowing that it will happen in 1 month, and also that the response time is very short. Initially, I thought I'll wait till the window closes before I start reading or responding, but that turned out not to be a great idea because I would lose some of the best poems. They would be accepted elsewhere. So I read as the month goes on, and by the end of the month, I've read them all, and people have heard whether they're in or not. And so that short response time is a real boon for a writer.
The voice of Rachel Barton, editor of Willawaw Journal, which you can read for free, the entire beautiful issue, at willawawjournal.com. That's WILLAWAW, Willawaw. What's in a name? What is Willawaw Journal? Why did you name it that?
Willawaw is a weather event, and in Alaska, small plains, you're familiar with that name. It's a gust of wind along the coast that comes down the mountain and heads out to the water. You can see a little squall out there, and that's called a Willawaw.
I see. And so what is the significance of that for you, that you decided to name the journal?
Well, a beautiful word, of course.
Yes.
But also that impulse, that rapid movement, and something, it just felt like the right thing.
This one is called Where I'm From. I come from many places, and all of them live in me still. Now I know that when you leave a place, it doesn't leave you. California, Athens, and Hamburg, this shoreline I walk every day, I'm from there. I am descended from a blue-eyed people, sturdy stock who left their home so I could find mine, who sailed away willingly, without regret. Their seascape belongs to me now, passed down like a genetic geography, an ancestral visitation. Here's the family tree with names of those I never knew, who died by suicide, alcohol, or just worn out like unwound clocks. Sometimes I shake the branches of that tree, hoping to find a secret liaison. Smoky love in a Parisian cafe. But I come from a country of women who canned peaches and jam, pickled beets, glued what was broken. Women who left North Dakota, Idaho, and Saskatchewan to follow their fathers, marry their husbands. I carry the dust of those places too. I am the daughter, the granddaughter, the great-granddaughter of women who never spoke of loss, who settled into their lives wherever they were, even if they wanted to leave, who moved on, even if they wanted to stay.
You, a writer, editor, and educator, have come at this journal from an interesting angle where you expressed your dissatisfaction with the direction the community college was going, where you were teaching, and then the limits of teaching in your home. So you have really had this impulse to share knowledge and to help people write and grow as writers. And that comes through in Willawaw Journal. The inspiration is that you give to writers for each issue is a prompt that you've chosen from a poet laureate from hailing from somewhere. And you've brought together a beautiful issue. What's the thing that you feel best about this issue, or maybe that after 6 years of publishing, you've done with this issue that maybe you didn't do with previous ones?
What was new for me was engaging that fully in the prompt and examining it, bringing up the questions for myself that this poem raised, and sharing that in the notes from the editor. Because in the past, the notes have often just been a kind of map of where the poems are going to take you, who's in them, and titles and such.
So you delve deeper into your own thoughts as well about the prompt.
Yeah. Yes, I did.
That's very interesting. So, because I found actually in doing this show, Listen and Be Heard, that I've grown quite a bit just talking to other writers and listening to the experiences they've gone through and some of the decisions they've made. And so I imagine that you, as a teacher, are also sort of a student of the writers who you're interacting with, creating this journal.
You asked me earlier about community, and I feel that community in people's responsiveness when I come back to them to speak about a poem that is 99% on the page, and there's something not there or something extra there. They want to hear. They want to know. I mean, I'm just one reader, but I've read a lot of poetry, and so I offer what I can when you just missed a word here or a punctuation, or could we just cut off the last stanza, which is often a problem with poetry.
Interesting.
Or people go a little too far explaining where they want to be, and we don't need the explaining, just the experience. So I get to work as an editor in a live sense, not just the person who puts it on the page and makes sure the punctuation is correct. And of course, it's always the poet's choice. It's always what they want on the page. We have the discussions.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Rachel Barton, editor of Willawaw Journal. Is there anything else that you would like to say about Willawaw that I've not given you the opportunity to say yet.
That it grows by the way that my writers, contributors share it. So please share your work, share your favorite piece, pass it along.
So please go to willawawjournal.com, read a poem. It's laid out a little bit like traditional print journals with the page 1, 2, 3, 4. And at the top of each page is just a beautiful art piece by Sam Siegel. They're based in nature, as you mentioned in the notes from the editor. Please go to willawawjournal.com. Rachel Barton, I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you, Martha.
And this next poem is a pantoum called Holy Radishes and Other Acts of Desperation. Close the drapes and cast a circle of salt. I am not a witch. I am simply lonely. Call up your father's ghost. He can hear, but he cannot answer back. I am not a witch. I'm just lonely. Perhaps that is the story of every witch. My father will not answer back, which is a shame. I have questions. Perhaps that is the story of every witch, bored and ignored. You can tap the power of your shame. Write your questions in that pretty notebook you've been saving. Bored? Ignored? Try tapping the power of making stuff up. Oh, holy radishes, oh, pretty notebook. Make sure you're saving fingernail clippings and menstrual blood for making stuff up. Now hold the radishes high, chant, he will never hurt me again. Toss fingernail clippings. Menstrual blood helps us remember we're animals. Chant, he will never hurt me again. Maybe he will, maybe he won't, but it helps our animal selves to hear it. Shout it loud enough to snuff a candle out. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. He definitely will. I'm not a witch. Say what you wish, then snuff your candle out. Cry until you have no salt. Open the drapes.
Going to the palm reader. My wife has been talking about seeing a palm reader as a lark, she says, a goof, a game, kind of like checking our horoscopes in the alternative weekly that's filled with dispensary ads, specials for Doobie Tuesdays and Refer a Friend and Feel Good Fridays, one touting their ediblisables, marijuana for the masses, medicinal or recreational. She brings it up, the palm reader, every time we pass the neon hand in the window of the old house with the heavy curtains. We are knocking on 70's door, our lives mostly behind us and out of our hands. So I wonder what she thinks this reader can discover in our creases and calluses, what advice she or he can offer us. Beware the icy steps. Shun the treacherous throw rugs like disaster scattered beneath our feet. Steer clear of busy streets, avoid left turns, and drive not in the twilight hours. No, that's the advice of the AARP Drive Safely course we had to take, an earnest soporific that haunts me. Maybe my wife imagines the chiromancer will find for her a new man, since I am clearly past my best buy date, and begin to resemble the carrot left too long in the vegetable bin, or the banana ready for transubstantiation into bread or muffin. When she thinks I have dozed off to my audiobook, she will take my hand in hers and trace the lines, her fingertip a hound sniffing out a quarry's path, so slow, so gentle, circling the mounts on my palm and nosing along the old ravines. I open my eyes and look at her hands first, then her face, and she smiles and tells me I fell asleep. Maybe she wants the palmist's help divining the lost past, recalling for her the sugar and salt of years gone.
This is Listen and Be Heard, originating from WPVM LP 103.7 in Asheville, North Carolina, and WPVMFM.org worldwide. My name is Martha Senator. My co-host is Tony Robles. We've been listening to a conversation with Rachel Barton editor of Willawaw Journal, about the fall issue at willawawjournal.com. We just heard the voice of contributing poet Cecil Morris, and previously from poets Connie Soper and Erica Reid. Fading In is The Caged Bird, Imitations of Life by the Cinematic Orchestra, featuring Roots Manuva from their album To Believe. Based in the UK, they've performed at the Royal Albert Hall with a full orchestra, pushing the boundaries, fusing new jazz and down-tempo music, and are signed to Ninja Tune Records. Coming up, a conversation about A Business of Ferrets and other terms I never knew when Tony Robles speaks with children's author Karen Beckwith.
All engaging. Perfection's in that non-perfection and I see queen, I see king, I see king, I see queen. Well, none of you know my kingdomanium. Last chance to retract it. Last chance to retract it. Why would you hide from yourself? Believe is here to find you. Why would you hide from yourself? Believe is here to find you. Well, let's pick up my foot and do those things. Improve thyself, improve with things. I thank you for the healing in wings of meditation. Situation is strange to us. Stranger things are claiming us. I've been told breathe easily, as easy as that breathing be. Not so, never so, she's been told. She done sold a part of her soul. How the hell will we let it go? How the hell will we ever know? Now and then and here and then, claim to be my bestest friend. It's just the word she's saying it. There ain't no returning now. There ain't no returning now. Why would you hide from yourself? Believe is here to find you. Why would you hide from yourself? Believe is here to find you. When I pick up my foot and do those things, improve with things. I thank you for that healing in wings of meditation. Situation is strange to us. Stranger things are pulling us. I've been so breathe easily, as easy as that breathing be.
All of us have read children's books. All of us have been children at one time or another. And when I think of children's books, there are certain books that come to mind. Books like The Red Balloon. I used to love that. Where the Wild Things Are. You know, there are books that stick with you as as you reach adolescence and even adulthood. Today, we're going to be talking to a wonderful author who has published a children's book with some wonderful art. It's called A Business of Ferrets, Collective Nouns of the Animal Kingdom. And this is written and illustrated by Lauren Beckwith. Lauren, thanks for being on Listen and Be Heard. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
A Business of Ferrets. I was at the Ingles supermarket and I saw a flyer for one of your readings at a bookstore on Main Street. And I thought, wow, this is what I've been looking for. I've been looking to interview a local children's author. A Business of Ferrets, that's, a great title. It's, I understand, your first children's book. Can you tell us about the inspiration behind the book?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to work in a restaurant for a number of years. I was a waitress, and there was one, I think it was a Friday or Saturday night. It's just really packed, really busy. And there were a couple kids who were tired of waiting. And so they started running laps around the restaurant and, almost crashing into me several times. And I was starting to get a little frustrated. And then I just thought, you know what? I would, if you could call a group of children something, I would call them a dervish, a whirling dervish. It just felt right in that moment. And so the frustration kind of faded. And then later I was thinking about it, and wouldn't it be fun to try and illustrate that? And I remembered that there are some really goofy names for groups of animals, like A Business of Ferrets. And I had a ferret at the time. I am one of those people who has owned a ferret. His name was Boo Radley. Anyway, that's why I knew what a business was, A Business of Ferrets, because I had a ferret. And so that the ideas just kind of went from there.
Boo Radley was the name of your ferret?
Yes, from To Kill a Mockingbird.
Hey, tell us about that too, because when I think of pets, I think of, cats, dogs, maybe snakes, birds, but I don't think of, ferrets. How did you come to own a ferret? What was that,
We didn't really have many pets growing up in my household. And I wanted a rabbit for a really long time when I was a little kid. And then when I went to college, my senior year, I was in my own apartment and I decided, I'd really like a ferret. It's like a blend between a cat and a dog. It's got the personality of the dog and it's the size of the cat, right, but smaller actually. And they sounded so delightful. I think my best friend growing up, she'd had one and he was a lot of fun. And so I did it. I got a ferret and I was the girl on campus with the ferret, and I took him out on a leash every once in a while. And yeah, those were good days.
Wow. It's funny because I had a coworker, whoever the target of his teasing was, he would call them Ferret Face.
That's just
so I became Ferret Face several times. Now you're a self-taught artist. Now I can just imagine, okay, you're working as a waitress, you're herding cats, or kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tried to, multitask. Was it a matter of, getting ideas sometimes when you're at the job and then during a break doing a sketch? Can you talk about that, because you're self-taught and, how you came to, to that end?
So I've always loved drawing, even as a little kid. That was my favorite thing to do was draw. And I started writing books when I was a little kid and I didn't finish any of them, but I would fold the paper in half and do the illustrations. And my mom saved a ton of them. And so you can kind of figure out what I was trying to say because I didn't spell anything correctly either. But from there, I was always drawing, always doodling, that kind of thing. But I never really pursued it in school. Writing was always something I was a little more interested in. And so I focused my education on writing and learning how to do that better. I would just go through phases of drawing more, not drawing so much. And my grandfather was a self-taught watercolor painter. And so when he died, my dad gave me his brushes and some of his paint, which a lot of it is like really dried up, but I haven't quite been able to throw it out yet. 'Cause like, it's watercolor. You can just spray some water on it and it'll do its thing. But
that's beautiful. I mean, a legacy, that would be passed down like that, Excellent. Yeah. I mean, that's really really beautiful. Now your degree was in English.
Creative writing, yeah.
Yeah. So, during the program, in pursuit of your degree, was the idea of doing a children's book something that was in your purview or on the horizon for you, or were you thinking that you were going to, write fiction or nonfiction or memoir, or, what exactly was your goal at that time?
I wanted to write all of it. Honestly, I enjoyed writing so much of it. I did have the idea of doing a children's book, kind of like a quirky riff on Goodnight Moon. But I was more focused on, I like writing fiction. I want to do that. And I wrote some personal essays and some poetry here and there. I didn't go in with I want to become a children's book author in mind.
Well, I can imagine too, when I see people like in the cafes, they might have a journal with them and they're doodling and they're doing journal entries. I think a journal is kind of like the perfect venue where you can kind of tap into your creativity. Now, you're doing both the art and the writing. Now, I've published a couple of children's books myself.
And I checked them out.
Yeah. When we were with Children's Book Press, I was introduced to an artist named Carl Angel, who was quite talented. And, we were paired up and I didn't know who he was, right? I'd never met him. But, our sensibilities really kind of complemented each other. Can you maybe talk about what the process was for, being both the illustrator and the writer, if there were any challenges with that in terms of working with your editor, or was it something that was fairly easy for you?
I enjoyed being able to do both because I could execute exactly what I had in mind. I could, illustrate it exactly the way I wanted it. Because so much of the book, it's this play on words, right? It's very literal illustrations of words. So there's the band of gorillas and they're playing they're playing instruments, that kind of thing. So it was really artistically, I guess, satisfying to be able to just put on paper what I had in mind. I did, however, have to hire a graphic designer to format the book. And I guess a lot of illustrators these days, they do a lot of their work digitally. And so I think they can probably do that too. But that was interesting working with him and saying, okay, no, I want the text, this shade to match this, this shade of paint that wasn't in the computer. But so a lot of back and forth there, but he was great.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, my illustrator says the same thing about digital, that, there's all these different dimensions. One of the things here in A Business of Ferrets, and I did, read it a couple of times, is the humor. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of the stuff is really funny. And I mean, on this cover, you have ferrets at a lemonade stand. The ferrets are pouring the lemonade for the frogs. And then you got these hippos and these giraffes in the background. I mean, this is just really funny. Some of this stuff is just very, very humorous. I guess any art that taps into humor and does it really well, oftentimes, and this is true with comedy too, right? Oftentimes there's some hurt and pain that's behind that, or even trauma. There's certain things that happen to us that allow us to somehow upend that and turn it around and make something beautiful out of it. And that beauty can also can manifest in humor.
I just had a good time with them. There wasn't anything kind of dark behind them. It was more just, I have free reign to just be goofy. And the ferrets page on the inside of the book is modeled after The Office a little bit, which is probably my favorite TV show of all time. And it took me a while to get into it. I don't know if you've seen it before, but I feel like there's humor just all over the map in that show. And so I wanted to give a nod there. But I'd say, I think when there's some kind of hurt or something to grow from, those tend to be more serious works on my part, or neutral, I suppose, but not the funny stuff. The funny stuff is just like, I wanted to make the adult who was going to have to read that book over and over and over and over again to the kid. I wanted to make them smile too, because I have little kids of my own, and it gets so boring to read the same wonderful book over and over again, but I wanted to give them something to smile at as well.
Yeah, that's very obvious with this book. The Russian writer Maxim Gorky, when he spoke of writing for children, he said that you write for children the same way that you would write for adults, only better. You do it, but you do it better, right? You have a page here. This is educational. These are, like collective nouns for the animal kingdom. Educational. I mean, there are adults that are going to read this that don't know this stuff. Mm-hmm. And, they're going to learn with the kids. You have a bloat of hippos. And to our WPVM listeners, they are certainly bloated. This is a wonderful book. You have some really wonderful illustrations here. I'm just curious, when you were a child, were there any, children's books that stood out that you liked, that maybe you read over and over again?
Oh yeah. I still love Jan Brett. I love her books, especially for the illustrations, because they're so detailed. Like, I aspire to that level of detail one day. It's just, there's always something new to notice. I love that. It's the little things that make it for me. And some of my earliest memories of being read to, they'll just click back into place when I open whatever that book is and I see a certain illustration. I'll just remember looking at that picture as a kid and just seeing, oh, that nose is angled a certain way, or there's this curvy line that's kind of weird.
There's also the language, there's also the rhythm of the language too, and the fact that each page has very short sentences, right? Very, very, very short, but memorable. And there's also a rhythm and a cadence to it that, I think sometimes the best writing is the most succinct, that, you can put the most impact in fewer words. Join the wise owls of Parliament. So the Parliament, and you have owls actually.
Yes.
Parliament. Wait, do you have? I think I saw sloths. Are there sloths here?
There's a bed of sloths.
Oh, that's right. They're all in bed. 1, 2, 3, 4, and one of them looks stretched out.
And if you look at the night sky in the window behind them, you'll see a sloth stellation.
A sloth play on words. Play on words.
That's a word now.
Yeah. Hey, another thing that was interesting too, I was looking at your website, that you do, I guess, portraits of pets for people that want them, right?
Yes. And so I haven't done one in a little while, to be honest. The way I did this with the book was I started with the book, and then I worked on it for a couple months. I kind of sent it out to publishers, didn't hear anything, and I didn't want to do any more artwork, like final artwork, before hearing back in case they wanted me to change things. So I thought, okay, I'll do something different for a little while. And this was during the pandemic. And I think my husband maybe suggested that I do pet portraits. And I was like, okay, I like drawing animals. I like drawing. And so I did one of our dog, and it turned out okay. And things just went from there. But that definitely helped me grow as an artist, going from using a very basic pen, a big pen, because that's what I was comfortable with, to getting some nicer ink pens after my family begged me to up my game a little bit. But I enjoyed doing those a lot, and because I was also pregnant at the time, and so had my kid, and then got back to the book once I found a publisher that was interested. So
for pet portraits, have you had any unusual pet requests?
No. And I would love one. I would absolutely love one. It's all cats and dogs. Yeah.
One thing I do notice here, and tell me if I'm wrong, is in A Business of Ferrets, Collective Nouns of the Animal Kingdom, which is a wonderful, wonderful book. I'm flipping through the pages, and let me see if I can. Oh, wait, hold on a second. We have a knot of colorful snakes. We are running down in time. It's been a fantastic time speaking to you about this book. I want to close it with this. Do you have any advice for people wanting to write a children's book? Because there are a lot of people out there that talk about it, but for whatever reason, don't do it. They don't think they can, or they just don't know how to start.
My advice is do it. Sit down and do it, and don't expect the first draft to be amazing. Like with any writing, the first draft is always just get it all out on paper and then go back later and work at it more. That first draft is for nobody else to see. Don't judge it. Just get your ideas out there. I think that's a good place to start.
Just get it down on paper, and then I guess your imagination takes over. You can expand from there, right?
You can expand from there, but don't be afraid to start that first draft. Start to finish, and then set it aside for a little bit, and then go back with fresh eyes. And just don't be afraid to make mistakes. And have fun with it. It's supposed to be fun.
Again, A Business of Ferrets by Lauren Beckwith. How do people get your book, Lauren?
You can get it on Amazon. You can get it online through Walmart or Target, Barnes & Noble. The 21st, I'll be at the Barnes & Noble in Greenville, South Carolina, the Haywood Barnes & Noble. They're having a local author spotlight event. And so myself and several other local authors will be there. Business of Ferrets. You've probably heard of a pack of wolves, a litter of kittens, or cattle in a drove. But did you know it's called a tower of giraffes, a bloat of hippos, a wisdom of wombats? Watch out for the crash of rhinos and the tigers, away they streak. Hear the cackle of hyenas? Just listen for the shriek. If you're looking for friends, consider a mischief of mice or a knot of colorful snakes. Maybe you prefer A Business of Ferrets, but be careful. They like to escape.
And you have a ferret at the water cooler.
Absolutely. And it's a water bottle like you would see in
Oh yeah, you got them at the water cooler. You got a couple of ferrets getting out of the elevator. You have the ferret receptionist. You got a ferret at the copier, and then you got one at the computer.
And the ferrets getting off the elevator, you can actually find them on the back cover on their way in.
Fantastic. So you got the first floor, the second floor, and the third floor. That's fantastic. Hey, again, A Business of Ferrets, Collective Nouns of the Animal Kingdom, written and illustrated by local author Lauren Beckwith, and that's Beckwith. A wonderful book, a wonderful children's book, and the adults will have a great time reading it to the kids. It's just, wonderful illustrations. It's a really wonderful story. And for those that might be interested in having you do a sketch of their dog, cat, pet possum, or whatever, how can they get in touch with you?
You can check out my website. It's artbylbeckwith.com. That's artbylbeckwith.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram at art.by.lbeckwith. And for those of you who can't make it to the Greenville event, there will be one in Hendersonville, November 11th at Off the Wall Books and Cafe.
Fantastic. That's on Spartanburg Highway, isn't it?
It is. It is from 11 to 12.
All right. Yeah. Fantastic. Once again, Lauren Beckwith, thank you so much for being with us on Listen and Be Heard Radio. Again,
you've been listening to Tony Robles in conversation with Karen Beckwith about her book, A Business of Ferrets. I wish I was going to be in Greenville for her reading at Barnes & Noble, but I will be attending the Grassroots Radio Conference in Charleston, West Virginia. But maybe you will attend and even want to send in a report about the event. Tony sends me interviews that he records live on his phone, and you can too, to editor@listenandbeheard.net. More poetry when we come back after some announcements and station identification. This is the start of another hour of Listen and Be Heard radio. My name is Martha Senator. I was just telling you that if you are interested in contributing interviews, book reviews, or in covering events like readings or slams or concerts, please send a query to editor@listenandbeheard.net. This is community radio. We want to communicate where we are. My co-host is Tony Robles. He had a fun book launch at The Buzz in Hendersonville that brought together some of the authors who we have featured here on this show. We have a guest interviewer today, Nilsa Rivera, who you might remember has also been a guest author here on Listen and Be Heard. Today, she interviews Tony about his new book, Thrift Store Metamorphosis. But first, Tony gets around, and there is a new open mic event in Hendersonville called Versers of Color at the Kava Bar, where we'll drop in and hear a bit of what that was about.
It's time to rise up and take our proper place. Success is looking us right in our face. It's time to rise up, be bold, beautiful, and bright, to be queens and kings by day and by night. It's time to shift our mindset towards greatness, because God knows He does not bless any mess. So I say, rise up, rise up. Let's take and accept the victorious cup and raise our glasses to start speaking to the masses. It only takes one to start a movement to rise up. Will you be that one? Let's take the ownership of ourselves, our community, and work, and let's not give up, because now it's time to rise up.
Tricia, thank you so much. Now, this poem is it sounds like a call to action. Now, when did you write that poem?
This morning. It was on my heart to do that, and it was in my spirit that we need to rise up.
And what's the title of the poem?
It's called Rise Up.
Rise Up. And you are so you're originally from Atlanta.
Originally from here.
Oh, originally from
here, yes.
Oh, so you're originally from Hendersonville,
yes.
And went to Atlanta, and now you're back. This is, I guess, the opening night of Black and Brown Versers of Color at the Kava Bar, and it's wonderful that you shared your poem this evening. What do you think of the evening, thus far? What do you think of the gathering of folks?
Oh, it's good for the first night. I think it's been very good. I can see the potential in it. I can see other people coming in and, just like it's open mic, everybody just come and do and say what you feel, and I think that's great.
I can tell that you love poetry, you love the spoken word. Are there any poets that you read, or any poets that really move you, that inspire you to write poetry?
I always go by my spirit and how I feel. That's how I really get what I feel like. It's more like I told you, I just wrote that one. But I always like Maya Angelou. And I also would like to read inspirational books and messages. And that's what I get my inspiration from.
And it sounds like, your poetry or your message really is the message. What is your message to the community here in Hendersonville? And I know you said that you moved to Atlanta. I guess you were there for a time.
For 35 years.
And you were in Atlanta for 35 years. What kind of, just in the time that you've been back here, what What are you seeing in the community right now, and what are some of the things that you'd like to see kind of transform and change from your perspective?
I see some diversity in the community, but I would like to see more. I would like for us to come together more to make it better. And I think they're starting to do that. I've seen some of the meetings. I can see where people are starting to get in place to accomplish that. But I think we still need it's a long way for us to go.
And I see that when you were in the Kava bar, you were there with your mom. Is that
my sister and
your mother and your sister? So it sounds like you got a pretty close knit family. Did you did any of your inspiration for poetry come from your mother? Did any of that come from your family?
Yeah, it started with my grandfather. My grandfather, he was a very prominent person in the community. He had an auto mechanic store, and it's in Hendersonville on Oak Street, and they're still on that land. But he is my inspiration. My grandfather is, and my mom, and that's why I came back to Hendersonville to come back to be with my mom and my family, and I have a business here too that I opened. So I think I wanted to my whole thing is to come back and give back what I know, what I've learned from Atlanta to come here. And I think that's my purpose here.
You know, for people that have moved here fairly recently, such as myself, I've only been here for about 5 years. There has been an influx of a lot of people from a lot of different places. What should people know, people that have moved here, thinking about moving here, what should they know about the Black community here in Hendersonville? What must they know in order to kind of understand where they're at?
I think because of the salon that I own, I have a lot of people come in from different places. And the one thing I hear them saying is that everyone's different kind of here. They're different. I think once people here open up and invite the people that come in to the community, I think they will be more comfortable. Well, I hear a lot of people say, everyone kind of different. It's different here, but it's a small, close-knit community. But Hendersonville has a lot of good, rich history too. So I think once people come here and they get comfortable with the natives or the local people, and they will be able to, see their history.
I know Atlanta, I know that's a big haven. I know that for the Black community, that's like it's a big city, a lot of Black businesses, a lot of Black people. I guess, was it a matter of you wanting to kind of go to a slower pace? Exactly.
Yes. I've been there since 85, and I got to see a lot of growth in Atlanta, and being from one end to the other end, I wanted to slow things down, like you said, slow things down a little bit. And I knew I could accomplish that here in the city. And I love it because, like I said, I know everyone here and everyone knows me. And I just feel that it was a good fit for me for right now.
This is Tony Robles, Listen and Be Heard Radio here at the Kava Bar at the inauguration of Black and Brown Versers of Color. Tricia, thank you so much for being with us.
Head Wrap by Crystal Colley. I see the head wrap as my crown for all to see. The queen I am in the lineage of women that came before me. My blackness and beauty being a natural distraction, the head wrap was enforced to end the slave master's attraction to God's most beautiful creation, the Black woman. Forced to wrap to create inferiority from birth to the grave, the head wrap was a symbol that we were slaves. To break our pride, the cloth could not hide the strong resistance we felt inside. The head wrap is history that turned into something great, styling and folding the head wrap to send messages when, where, and how to escape. I am beautiful, Black, and proud. My head wrap speaks for me and says it out loud. From the 1970s Black Panther Rebellion, back in Egypt when crowns were adorned on African heads, Afro-Creole women using feathers, ribbons, and jewels. The head wrap continues to be a learning and surviving tool. The head wrap is radical. The head wrap is an expression. Poetic spoken word giving a head wrap lesson, wrapped in a way, showing my creation, wrapped to pay respect to the Black liberation.
Today, I'm actually on the firing line. I'm the one that's being interviewed. Guest interviewer today is a friend of mine, Nilsa Rivera, who lives in Florida.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Honored to be here with you. We met at Vermont College of Fine Arts about 3 years ago. So I'm really happy to be doing this. Really excited about your book. I have some good questions. Let's jump right in. Let me ask you, how did you come up with the idea of writing poems about your experiences at the thrift store?
Well, at the thrift store I was working at, it was in Hendersonville where I live. We were in the pandemic, and I had been working at the deli section of a supermarket. And when the pandemic hit, like everybody else, we didn't know what was going to happen. I was kind of freaking out, and I ended up quitting that job. And then after a while, I applied at a rather well-known thrift store whose stores are all over the country. I ended up getting a job there. I doubled up. I wore both a mask and a face shield. I was hired as a cashier and a donation specialist. What I was intrigued by was the fact that I was seeing a lot of things transpire that were poignant, humorous, and it had a lot of spirit. So the only way I can kind of describe it is that, people come into a thrift store to buy things. They're trying to find a good deal. They're trying to find a hidden treasure, which is fine, right? Sometimes you find it, sometimes you don't. But in the process, what I tapped into was the people that came in, what they brought to the store, what they left behind, just in their demeanor, their actions, the things that they would say. So, the medium of exchange for me wasn't so much dollars, but it was spirit and really kind of poignant moments that I kind of tapped into. And, the thrift store being that type of setting where, you had a cross section of the community of Hendersonville that, many different types of people that came in, different members of the community, they all had beautiful things about them. And I wanted to document those things. And it was almost like a collaboration with the people. I was writing them, but I wouldn't be able to write those things had it not been for the people. Not so much the objects, but really the people that were coming into the store.
Right, because you are originally from the Bay Area in San Francisco, and then you moved to Hendersonville. So what was that transition like? Because I know, for example, I used to live in Miami, which was a very city, and then moved to Tampa and Lakeland, which are cities, but not as busy as Miami. What was your transition like once you moved?
Just in itself, I didn't know really what to expect because, the legacy you hear of the South, you hear of, the KKK, you hear of the violence against Black people and that whole history. So I didn't really know what to expect. But, my mother lives down here in a place called Bat Cave, which is about, a good 30 minutes from where I live. I needed to get out of the city and move elsewhere. And as blessings would have it, or luck would have it, my stepfather found a mobile home in Hendersonville that looked good. And I ended up buying the mobile home. Actually, I bought it with the funds that I got from a individual artist grant from the San Francisco Art Commission that they funded a book of poetry of mine, actually. So I could say that I bought my house with money that I had earned as a writer. So, so part of it really was, a large part of it was to get out of San Francisco because it was just, it was becoming too much for me, and I'd lived there my whole life and I just needed to make a change.
One of the things I love about the book is the diversity of all the characters. And I heard you when you mentioned you didn't know what to expect from the community.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about the community in Hendersonville.
Well, when I first got here 5 years ago, to my perception, it was very white and very older. It was an older community, a lot of retirees. A lot of folks that came up here from Florida, they called them halfbacks, because they would move from the East Coast to Florida, and then they would move out of Florida and not go back to the East Coast, but would come to North Carolina, which is halfway back. So hence the name halfbacks, right? I found people to be, very polite, very civil, which I didn't experience a whole lot of that in San Francisco. So that was refreshing to me. But, in the last couple of years, it's gotten a lot more diverse here. We have a growing Latino community down here, not just in Hendersonville, but, I was in a place called Morganton, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours from here. They got a place called Little Guatemala. You have places like Newton, where there's a Latino community. There's a Micronesian community in Hendersonville. I had no idea. I thought when I first ran into a Micronesian cat at he was at the gas station. I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, are you Filipino, man?" He said, "No, I'm Micronesian." And I saw more and more Micronesian people. The thing is, everybody has a story. Everybody comes from a background, and we know that, Micronesia. I think those islands were at one time called the Marshall Islands. That whole legacy of nuclear testing and the U.S. military, and how a lot of these folks, leave their homes because of that. So that's interesting. And I got a chance to meet a lot of these people, in the community, working at the thrift store. And people were, buying clothes. They were buying household things, very practical things for their families. It wasn't, you had people that would come in and try to see what the value of something was so they could resell it. But for the most part, it was regular working people that wanted to buy things for their families. So I connected with that very much.
Some of the people in the book really touched me for different reasons, and just opened up some deep questions in my mind. One example is the Navajo man, with the idea that, items are discarded somewhere, right? And he was there to rescue it. Also, the sculptor, when you went to the house, opened up questions and thoughts about the idea that items have soul, that they have an energy.
Yeah.
Which one of the characters has left the biggest imprint in you?
Some of the folks are funny. You had two guys that you would walk in, never bought a thing, but they would come in very polite. It was almost like the two cowboys just riding into town. And they would call you, they would say, "Oh, hey, how you doing, darling?" Or "God bless," kind of down home, but never bought anything. They'd come in all the time, So, you get to know those guys. And, the poem about the Navajo is like, that's reclamation. There was a Navajo piece of art that somebody had donated, and he recognized it, And the thing is, I was thinking about the fact that I've lived a half a century on this earth in this country, and I'd never met Navajo. I'd never met somebody from that nation, and so to me that was sacred. And to have that happen in a thrift store where, you'll never know what you'll find on sale, and then you'll never know what you'll find in terms of what you'll confront, or what you end up seeing. A thrift store, that setting is an analogy for that. And the fact that we're connected. You have these clothes that are on the racks, and then you look at where these clothes were made. Hecho in Mexico, or hecho in the Philippines, hecho in Vietnam. All these different places, the world. Their hands have touched these garments. It's like these things don't get made by themselves. These things are made by workers. We don't often think about that, but if you're a poet with nothing better to do, that's gonna come on your radar at certain points.
Did you encounter anything unusual in the thrift store? Anything?
I think it was one of the popes. I think it was Pope John Paul. Was a banner, and somehow it was on the floor, and we had to pick things up and throw things away. And I know that they didn't want to keep that banner. That was going to end up in the trash. But then, not that I'm a devout Catholic or anything, but my grandmother had the banners of the Pope in her room, and I just felt I couldn't do it. I said, because I was thinking about my grandmother. I said, look, somebody else is going to have to throw that away because I can't do it. I just can't. Then there were books. When I was in the Vermont program, I was working at the thrift store at the same time. And I saw books that were being donated that were coming off the trucks, books by authors that I was reading in the program, like Ellison and Baldwin and, all these different, Carl Sandburg, and a lot of other authors. It was almost like a kind of a reminder, like, hey, this is who you are. This, you're working here, but this is who you truly are. There were times where we had to throw out, I had to dump books, which I wasn't involved in because I refused to do it. I can't throw my brethren in the trash. I just can't, I saw a typewriter actually in the trash compactor. I actually have a poem in the book. It's called Ode to a Typewriter in a Trash Compactor. I felt sad about it because it was very cold and it was, I guess, snowflakes were falling, and I see this typewriter and I'm thinking, wow, because like poetry is the compression of language. You compress it to where you're, every word really kind of counts. And I'm thinking, to put a typewriter in a trash compactor, I mean, you're really going too far with this compression thing. I thought, wow, what irony, to put a typewriter. So I was tripping on, who might have owned that typewriter, what they were writing. Maybe they had dreams of being a writer and didn't fulfill those dreams and decided that they were going to throw the typewriter out. Ode to a Typewriter in a Trash Compactor. Sometimes one feels like a pallbearer at a thrift store. In the donation area, people drop off items that are no longer useful. Cups with cracks that distill memories of demarcation lines that divided kitchen tables. Microwave ovens that have waved one last time. Old sewing machines, crock pots, board games with missing pieces, warped records, rugs with stains that look like countries that were once on the map. These and 1,000 more items are carried to the trash compactor out back. So hungry is the compactor, it can't get enough of everything. I have seen the blasphemy of books sitting in the compactor, not tossed in by me, awaiting the final compressed language. I tried to make poetic sense of it, and I see that a typewriter has been tossed into the compactor. My fingers are cold as it has been snowing, and the typewriter's keys are surely as cold. My finger does not want to push the compactor button, to squeeze the life out of the typewriter, for surely it allowed someone the chance to squeeze some life out of this thing we call life, in a story, a letter, a poem.
The items in the poems are almost like characters, like Pete. I think like Pete. It's a character, and he just pops out of the page.
Well, Pete is he's my stepfather. And, you might as well say that, that's his life's blood. He spends a lot of time at thrift stores. They also call them consignment stores. And I would say 95% of the things at his house and my mom's house are from thrift stores. He really, he likes to wheel and deal. He likes to get things, and he likes to say, well, hey, how do you like this? Well, what do you think I paid for it? And then then it becomes a guessing game. But he's been doing that for a very, very long time. I mean, he would give me clothes, but there was always a catch. There was always something about the item that needed a little something. Like he would say, "Oh, look at this. This is the shirt. I got this for you, man. This shirt here, man. I'm telling you, this was in style 20 years ago, man. But you know what? It's going to come back. It's not going to go completely out of style. It's going to come back in style. Check it out. Look at that. They got the raglan sleeves, and all you need to do, man, it's missing 3 buttons. All you got to do is take it to a tailor." Thrift store Pete. Pete was born in a thrift store with a price tag that read priceless and a captain's hat that tilted slightly to the side. Pete, named for Peter, the rock, the disciple who was called to be a fisher of men. But in Pete's case, he was called to navigate the thrift store waters of the world, with captain's hat fitting snug on head as he fished out bargains. Pete's eyes were two buttons that dangled loose from a shirt that is no longer in style, but like karma, eventually comes back in style. He has an eye for details, plucking this gem or that gem like a raven plucking out the eye of a king. He sees it all. Those expensive things that land on the thrift store floor. He zooms in and whisks it home and asks the eternal question, do you know what this cost new? Guess how much I paid for it. Pete always has his eyes out for you, finding just what you need and delivering it unannounced. Like a coat with a missing button or a pair of expensive pants whose zipper doesn't quite have the zip it once had. Just bring it to a tailor and it's as good as new, Pete says. But no one can replace Pete, who was born in a thrift store. He was tailor-made for the place.
This is Listen to Be Heard Radio, originating from WPVM in Asheville, North Carolina, 103.7 FM, and WPVMFM.org worldwide. We're listening to Nilsa Rivera in conversation with Tony Robles and some poetry from Thrift Store Metamorphosis. Coming up, some spoken word from Gil Scott Heron and Ursula Rucker.
Now, this came from a thrift store. This is a hairbrush, like an old-fashioned hairbrush. And the reason I picked this up was because I had my great-grandmother had a brush that was just like this one. So I picked that one up.
From the 1800s or maybe early 1920. I know that's a big gap, but.
So, it was almost as if some of these objects traveled 3,000 miles from the Bay Area and found me in the thrift store, like an old jacket that I used to wear. It was the same one, right? A children's book that was my favorite children's book, right? A scaled down metal replica of San Francisco cable car, because I grew up in North Beach in San Francisco, right next to the cable car line. So when I would find these things, it was like, wow, these things. I tried to get away from San Francisco by moving away, but you don't really get away, somehow it finds you, because maybe the city doesn't want me to forget it, Yeah.
Right, it's all a circle. It comes back to you.
Yeah.
In many cultures, they believe that items have souls. So you think some of those items come from San Francisco and they were chasing you.
Ding, ding, ding. Cable cars don't carve their tracks here in Western North Carolina. They don't dip and undulate across the Blue Ridge Mountains. My eyes rise and fall with the curvature of landscape. Ding, ding, ding. A sound of a different blues, many hues. My mind scales hills across downtown, North Beach and around Chinatown, settling near the Blue Ridge Mountains, stirring in silence. The cable car has picked up my tracks and found me 3,000 miles away. Ding, ding, ding. Next stop, home, the conductor says. I arrived in Western North Carolina 2 years ago from San Francisco. I take a hold of the cable car. I put its cold metal in my hands, place it on a shelf next to another trinket that has just arrived. Where is home? I ask. Its tracks carved into my palm.
So the book is awesome. I recommend it to anyone, to all the listeners. So what's next, Tony? What's next for you?
Trying to work on my novel again, trying to, do the revisions to make it to where I'm satisfied with it, and send it out and try to get that thing published. I would be very happy, be very, very happy if we could do that.
Okay, so I have this exercise, right? So in one sentence, tell me, what is the book about?
The book is about a man who lives in San Francisco, who confronts his past in a city that pretends not to have a past, and in the process sees what possibilities lie in his future in the city, his future for himself, and his future as a caring, loving human being. And I'll probably change that at some point.
Yeah, I bet. The book seems to evolve in itself. Yes, I've just been trying to think about how to conceptualize the book in a one sentence. And that was really good. On the spot, right? On the spot, that was really good. So where can listeners buy the book?
The publisher is Red Hawk Publications, and they are based in Hickory, North Carolina. Red Hawk publishes all kinds of stuff, children's, multi-genre. You can get it at redhawkpublications.com. Again, that's redhawkpublications.com.
So I have my copy, but I'm going to have to send it to you so that you can sign it and then you can mail it back to me. This has been awesome. Thank you, Tony.
All right.
Back when Eisenhower was the president, golf courses is where most of his time was spent. So I never really listened to what the president said, because in general, I believed that the general was politically dead. But he always seemed to know when the muscles were about to be flexed, because I remember him saying something, mumbling something about a military-industrial complex. Americans no longer fight to keep their shores safe, just to keep the jobs going in the arms-making workplace. And then they pretend to be gripped by some sort of political reflex. But all they're doing is paying dues to the military-industrial complex. Military and the monetary. Military and the monetary. Military and the monetary. The military and the monetary get together whenever they think it's necessary. They turn our brothers and sisters into mercenaries. They are turning the planet to a cemetery. The military and the monetary use the media as intermediaries. They are determined to keep the citizens secondary. They make so many decisions that are arbitrary. We're marching behind the commander-in-chief who was standing under a spotlight shaking like a leaf. But the ship of state had landed on an economic reef, so we knew he was going to bring us messages of grief. The military and the monetary were shielded by January and went storming into February. Brought us pot-bellied generals as luminaries. 2 weeks ago I hadn't heard the sumbitch, now all of a sudden he's legendary. They took the honor from the honorary. They took the dignity from the dignitaries. They took the secrets from the secretary, but they left the bitch an obituary. The military and the monetary from thousands of miles away in a Saudi Arabian sanctuary had us all scrambling for our dictionaries because we couldn't understand the Guffin vocabulary. Yeah, there was some smart bombs, but there were some dumb ones as well. Scared the hell out of CNN in that Baghdad hotel. The military and the monetary, they get together whenever they think it's necessary. War in the desert sometimes sure is scary, but they beamed out the war to all their subsidiaries, tried to make so damn insane a worthy adversary, keeping the citizens secondary, scaring old folks into coronaries. The military and the monetary from thousands of miles in a Saudi Arabian sanctuary. kept us all wondering if all of this was really truly necessary. We've got to work for peace. Peace ain't coming this way. If we only work for peace, if everyone believed in peace the way they say they do, we'd have peace. The only thing wrong with peace is that you can't make no money from it. The military and the monetary, they get together whenever they think it's necessary. They've turned our brothers and sisters into mercenaries. They are turning the planet into a cemetery. We've got to work for peace. Peace ain't coming this way.
We should not allow ourselves to be misled by talk of entering a time of peace. Peace is not the absence of war, it is the absence of the rumors of war and the threats of war and the preparation for war. Peace is not the absence of war, it is the time when we will all bring ourselves closer to each other, closer to building a structure that is unique within ourselves because we have finally come to peace within ourselves. Military and the monetary, military and the monetary, military and the monetary. Get together whenever they think it's necessary. They have turned our brothers and sisters into mercenaries. They are turning parts of the planet into a cemetery. What you gonna do? Military and the monetary, military and the monetary. Say what you gonna do? We hounded the Ayatollah religiously, bombed Libya and killed Gaddafi's son hideously. We turned our back on our allies, the Panamanians, and saw Ali North selling guns to the Iranians. Watched Gorbachev slaughtering the Lithuanians. We better warn the Amish, they may bomb the Pennsylvanians. Military and the monetary get together whenever they think it's necessary. They have turned our brothers and sisters into mercenaries. They are turning the planet into a cemetery. They got folks out there working for war. 2, 3, 4. Make a whole lot of money, start a little trouble, it's a war. Turn this planet into north and south, it's a war. Start a few rumors over there, make money with a war. Peace. Say it to yourself. I believe we got to work for peace. Peace ain't gonna be free, you gotta work for peace. You believe in peace, gotta go to work. They got folks out there working for war. Start a little trouble over here, what you got is a war. Turn these folks in the north and south, it's a war. Start a little trouble over here, what you got is a war. Tell everybody you know, we gotta work for peace. Gotta work, gotta work. You believe in peace, time to go to work.
I don't want to sound like no late night commercial, but it's a matter of fact that there are thousands of children all over the world in Asia and Africa and in South America who need our help. When they start talking about 55 cents a day and 70 cents a day, I know a lot of folks feel as though that's not really any kind of contribution to make, but we had to give up $1.50 just to get in the subway nowadays. So this is a song about tomorrow and about how tomorrow can be better if we all, each one reach one, each one try to teach one. Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. Everyone must play a part. Everyone got to go to work. Work for peace. Spirit say work. Work for peace. You believe in peace, say go to work. You believe in peace, time to go to work. Can't be waving your hand no more, go to work. Everything you ever really wanted, had to go to work.
this thing that's been weighing heavy on my heart. Haunts both my dreams and my first breath. Where to start? Well, revolution, it seems, has become an antique. When in my youth, revolution was what we rose with the sun to seek. We were fierce now. Our glory days are nothing but a page in an edge-worn book. An afro, a raised fist, a black beret, black pride. Set aside, reduced to mere history. It saddens me. It saddens me. But will these words fall on deaf ears? Cause my tears won't fill up the riverbed of resistance and change. It's gone dry, and gone and unknown are the names which gave that river its tranquility, its beautiful force and Godspeed. Rise up out of the complacency and do sleep. We need an awakening. Bring the noise, daughter. Now is the time for you and your generation to put this universal chaos in order. Me and mine, we've held high the picket signs, met behind closed doors, spoke out against war, spoke up for art and equality, told people we a community, a family. The years travel quick like speed and light, and the torchlight is burning low. And my tears, you know, they won't fill the riverbed of resistance and change. They're just an offering for those who have been named with love, and those who have died nameless, that they rest, knowing that their lives were worth the fight, that this planet and life are gifts to all, not just a chosen few. The now and future are up to you, so what are you and your brothers and sisters gonna do? But mama, the resistance seems so futile, when all the while government and media massacre my dreams. We, my brothers and sisters and me, are at the mercy of .coms, bombs that kill at least 30 daily. The constant downward spiral of music and humanity. A general lack of concern, knowledge, and history. Our potential leaders and spokespeople are chasing materialistic ideals. Seems our fates have been sealed with a bling bling kiss. So shall I just have the violins play for me as I recite this soliloquy of missed opportunity, a eulogy at the funeral for the modern day visionary? Or shall I rise as you call me? Will I fall or stand firmly? Mama, advise me, guide me, I want to be made ready. Baby girl, you sound ready to me. The spirit fire of Asada, Angela, Gandhi, King, and Garvey. In your veins bleed, they're your legacy. Keep your eyes on the prize of peace, and don't pardon me while I preach, because even hurricane and tsunami have spoken Earth's peace as they rose with wind and waves to say, cease this increase of heartlessness and regress. So please, please, beg no apology as you speak for truth. Move into the awakening. Bring the noise, daughter. It's past time for you and your generation to put this universal chaos in order. The now and future are up to you. So what are you and your brothers and sisters gonna do? Mama, I still question the meanings of freedom and peace, but I will not retreat. I will instead meet this challenge head on and heart strong. Sing my protest songs, take your hand and example, and go well into the storm and struggle with torchlight ample and bright to fight. Awaken my spirit, shaken but never stirred. Make my generation's voice heard. Rewrite this thing, bring the noise and the awakening. Sing, 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 the awakening.
You've been listening to The Awakening by Four Hero, featuring Ursula Rucker from Four Heroes' album Play with the Changes. Philadelphia-based poet, she teams up with the UK's Four Hero. Rucker is compared to such celebrated writers as Sonia Sanchez and Nikki Giovanni. She's collaborated with Philadelphia's The Roots and King Britt. Before that was Gil Scott-Heron, Work for Peace. He's best known for The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, that had major influences on hip-hop music. But lesser known is that he helped Stevie Wonder's mission and successful attempt to have the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. declared a federally recognized holiday in the United States. Thanks to associate producer DJ Jeannie Hopper for coming up with some spoken word liquid sound lounge flavor. To Nilsa Rivera for her interview with Tony Robles and Jay Rodriguez for his music. Thanks as always to Davian Dial for the opportunity to bring Listen and Be Heard to Asheville, North Carolina, and the Pacifica Affiliate Network. You can visit us at listenandbeheard.net, where you will find every episode of this show archived as a podcast, which is also available wherever you like to listen to podcasts. My name is Martha Senator, and I want to thank you for listening and the opportunity to be heard.
Giving it. Having it to give. Taking it. moving it around. Living it, giving it, having it, taking it, moving it, shaking it, creating it, loving it. Living it is loving it. Living it is sewing a coat, investing each stitch with magic, creating a unique design, putting it on and wearing it the rest of your life. Living it is knowing that what you see, what you hear is tangible. It's being a rock in the river and being the river too. It's hearing, you'll never be able to do that. Living it is knowing you will do it. It's speaking the unspoken. It's thinking the unthinkable. It's doing the unexpected. It's quitting before you get fired. Giving it is having it is taking it is moving it, shaking it, creating it, loving it. Living it is loving it. Living it is loving a man you're not supposed to love. It's giving way to emotions, creating commotions, calling attention to yourself. And I got that. Living it is learning from someone who can actually show you. It's cleaning your teacher's house or helping her to find one. It's never ever saying J-O-B. Living it is a one-way ticket and no solid plans. It's smoking a J in a smoke cafe in Amsterdam. It's saying the day is pretty in a strange new city. Living it is giving it. Giving it is having it is taking it is moving it, shaking it, creating it, loving it. Living it is having nothing to lose and everything to gain. It's putting all of your charms and attributes, every single one of them, to good use. It's knowing the kindness of strangers and love for sale. Living it is knowing where to buy rice and beans in bulk. It's knowing herbs are cheaper than doctors. It's keeping it together when you're falling apart. It's writing poetry to ease a broken heart. Living it is knowing the stage, looking into bright lights, late nights, barroom fights, fantastic sights, inspiration, and moving on, 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 and moving on. Because living it is giving it. Giving it is having it to give. Having it to give is taking it, snatching it, moving it, shaking it, creating it, loving it. Living it is being responsible for your own groove. It's playing on street corners for nickels and centines and being asked to move. It's sleeping in roofless squats in ancient convents. It's running up against police, getting thrown into the streets where you belong. Because living it is subletting. Living it is knowing your feet belong